Yesterday, Tim Pool uploaded a video about rising celibacy rates and women denying young men sex because they're seen as useless losers, less preferable to older, more successful men. And I want to do a quick response video here. I don't think it's going to take me terribly long to get to my point. Because once again, Tim Pool is offering, quote, advice, unquote, to young men that completely misses the point, a la Sargon and Jordan B. Peterson. Now, I don't think my subs require a refresher or a reminder here about Jordan B. Peterson and Sargon's, quote, advice, unquote, to young men. Or Tim Pool's probably. They've probably seen the video too. But if you happen to have arrived from the larger YouTube space and you're not subbed to me, or you found this video on the internet somehow, it may be useful to do a quick video montage here of what Jordan B. Peterson, Sargon, and Tim Pool have said in the past and how they've tried to get men past this celibacy issue.
In this chart right here, you can't assume that these age groups are only doing each other. Okay, we're going to get gross a little bit. But there's going to be some cross-generational, hookups. What we see here with the young people not getting laid predominantly being driven by men, although women aren't to a great degree as well, we can see that from 30 to 39, it's gone down. It's gone up a little bit for 40 to 49 and down a little bit for 50 to 59. But you know what this means when this goes down and this goes up for dudes? It would appear, I think we can look at this data and suggest that women are hooking up with older guys. Final data point, the share of young men reporting no female laying partners since they turned 18, a rough proxy for virginity, more than tripled since 2008. Alongside that, men in that age group are more likely than women to live with their parents, which presents obvious barriers. And what's really screwed up about this is I've seen the interviews on TV with there was one TV interview they did with a guy who was an incel, and I'm like, that looks like a normal dude. Like, I wouldn't even call him unattractive or attractive, looks like a normal guy. But he was genuinely convinced he was just not good enough. So, for one, if a guy doesn't have confidence for whatever reason, yeah, that's not attractive. There are people, I would say, just need a confidence boost and they're depressed, and that can be dangerous. But I will say, at the same time that we have this shift in society, which Christopher Ingram speculates it may have something to do with Me Too. Men aren't working, young men predominantly. Look at this. There's also something else here too, is that young men are going to be living with their parents. They're not going to have money. They're not going to be able to go on a date. They're not going to be able to entertain women. So women are going to older guys. That's what's going to happen. These guys who are living with their parents and don't have jobs aren't going to, in my opinion, generate the experience they need into their 30s to replace people who are in their 30s. So what I mean by that is someone in their 30s who has a career had a very different 20s than these men do. We need a real solution to this. Men aren't going to college. They're not working. They're not growing up. They're not taking on responsibility. Jordan Peterson shows up and says, clean your room. Carry the heaviest thing you can find. Pick it up, carry it. Take some responsibility for your life. And it was kind of Irish for Jordan Peterson. But then what happens? You finally have young men being told by this figure, you need to be responsible. What do they say? Jordan Peterson's alt-right. They're not becoming adults. They're living with their parents. They're not getting jobs. They're not saving. They're being left behind. And then when these people finally find someone like Jordan Peterson, who is absolutely not perfect, they call him alt-right. But when I see this, my reaction is like, man, we better do something to help these guys. We better teach them to just focus. Here's my advice, because I've done this before. If you find yourself in this situation where you're living at home, you can't find a job, I'll say this to the people who are still living with their parents in their 20s, young men, young women, whatever. You have an opportunity. You really do. Just start doing something. And maybe one of the easiest things, maybe lifting, I mean that seriously. What we need to do is say, be responsible. Find the heaviest thing you can and carry it. If you find yourself in one of these situations where people are attacking you and insulting you because you can't get a job, you can't go to school, you're living with your parents, start running, start walking. I'm not even kidding. Do the simplest thing you can every day. Just because you need to get out there, you need to interact with people, find a community. I'd make a recommendation of ride a bike. Just go ride a bike, find a meetup, find a group of people that go for walks every day. It's really just about finding that community and starting with something.
So I thought I'd do a thing just talking about some, I guess, what I'd say is worldly advice from an older man to younger men to talk to them about their fear of not getting laid. I mean, it's more women than not would prefer a man to be manly, physical, and active than be a soy boy. But I mean, Elliot Rodger was a pretty boy, and I bet his behaviour was fucking passive, but it's fucking pathetic. So being a pretty boy is not like the way to be sure that you're not going to be an incel, clearly, right? And then you've got like Alex Mendasian, who was like not a good looking guy, but not a bad looking guy. He obviously had personality defects and problems that made him kind of weird, but it's not really about looks for women. It's really not. It's about how you behave. Cultivate your maleness and your masculinity is what I would say, you know. And you might think, well, okay, well, I'm just skinny. Okay, well, stop being skinny. You know, it's something you can do something about. You know, and you might, I don't have to go to a gym. Well, stop being lazy. Don't necessarily go to the gym then. Get a job that's difficult. Get a job fucking lifting something. Do something. Actually do something. If you sit there stewing, then nothing will happen. But it is within your power to change how masculine you are. You know, don't worry about grooming yourself so much. Worry about being an interesting and dynamic person, someone who takes charge and has some initiative. Seriously, right? If you really want to get a woman, become like a fireman or a policeman or something. And if you're like, well, I'm skinny, okay, gain weight, bulk up. You've got to. You can do that for yourself. And I tell you what, right? It won't take long before you start seeing the results. And so look like you can provide. You know, again, you don't have to be like a giant hulking guy. You don't even have to be good looking. But you have to focus on yourself and work on yourself and improve yourself in some aspects. But if you're sat there on a forum whining that you're ugly or your weird face or something, that's not you improving yourself, and that is unattractive to women. And then obsessing about women all day, every day, that's massively unattractive to women because you don't look like you're going somewhere. You don't look like you're succeeding. You're not going to be a winner. Forget how you look. Concentrate on what you're going to achieve. And on the journey, you don't have to watch out for women. Women will be watching you. And I know that you sit there and go, well, I'll never look like a Chad, therefore there's no chance of me, there's no point in me improving myself. And it's like, well, look, you don't have to look like a Chad to get girls, man. You know, you don't have to look that way. You have to be on your way somewhere. You have to be doing stuff. You have to be trying to improve yourself and building something. When I've seen like incel message boards and stuff like that, it looks like incels effectively just taken the black pill and gone, right, okay, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm useless, I'm unattractive to women, and I will always be so, and so I will not do anything, and I'll get really angry and resentful. Don't just stew into like this kind of pathological self-hatred and hatred of others. You know, I don't think it's very healthy.
Why do you think, though, it's so much of an issue with males as opposed to females in our society?
Maybe females already have enough to do. Like, really. Like maybe men have to take this on voluntarily. That's what it looks like to me. Because like you can screw around till you're 50. You can still have a family. You got time. And you can sit down and do nothing if you want. You can do it. So, but you shouldn't, because it's horrible to do that.
Right. So when you say do nothing, that your life is meaningless if you're doing nothing. What do you mean by doing nothing?
Well, by not accepting any responsibility, by not lifting a great load, by not acting out the archetype of the hero. That's what people are. That's what men are, if they're anything. That's the secret to a meaningful life. And without a meaningful life, then all you have is suffering and nihilism and despair and all of that and self-contempt. And that's not good. And so it's necessary for men to stand up and take responsibility. And they all know that and are starving for that message. And the message is more that that's also a good thing.
Now, on the face of it, there's nothing wrong with this advice from Tim Pool, Sargon, and Jordan B. Peterson. There's nothing wrong with telling young men to hit the gym, get out there and exercise some way, socialize more. It's probably going to be a boost to their confidence and their mental and physical health. But as a cure for the society-wide rising celibacy problem, assuming that we all see it as a problem. Now, if we don't see it as a problem, that's fine. Don't even need to listen to the rest of this video. If you're okay with celibacy being on the rise among young men from 18 to 30 or whatever age range we're talking about here, then no harm, no foul. However, if we're looking to turn around this trend, then telling young men to hit the gym isn't going to work. Because see, here's the problem. This advice amounts to telling young men, just keep battling upstream, little salmon. It'll all get better soon. It's not addressing the real problem that the source of the river continues to be poisoned. And let me explain what I mean by that. If you watched that Tim Pool video, you may have noticed that the word hypergamy never even comes up. Here he is talking about the behavior of young women preferring older, more successful men, and he can't even say the word hypergamy. Now, Jordan P. Peterson obviously will mention hypergamy quite often. He's aware of evolutionary psychology and the terms that the area of research has popularized. And Sargon, if he's pressed by someone like Stardust or another MGTOW, every once in a while he'll bring it up too. But generally speaking, these classical liberals avoid the point with every ounce of their being. Now, I don't know if Tim Pool's even aware of the word. It seems pretty likely that he's heard it before, but he's not going to bring it up. He's one of those YouTube celebs who's very aware, highly aware of the algorithm and the red flags that it throws. It's one of my biggest flaws when it comes to YouTube. It's like my YouTube Achilles heel, and it's the reason that I'll always remain a tiny YouTube account, and I'll never have a large amount of subs, and I'll never make it into recommendation lists, and YouTube will do nothing to promote my channel. I am blissfully ignorant of the algorithm. I'll just call it the algorithm. I'm sure there are several algorithms working away out there on YouTube. But Tim Pool, it's like it's ingrained into his being. It's like part of his essence. It's funny, I was watching his video, and in the beginning he realizes that you can't say the word sex, but you can say getting laid. Like that would never even factor into my decision making in a video. And I wouldn't want to be bogged down by that mentally. But a lot of these YouTube celebs, that's what they concentrate on. And so they miss the bigger issue of female hypergamy. And, you know, a related concept that Jordan Peterson talks about quite often, and that's the Pareto principle, the fact that 80% of women are looking for the 20% of more desirable men, and they're ignoring the other 80% of men. And this is part of why we have this celibacy issue, because women's behavior is hypergamous by nature. They're looking up to the more desirable men. And what's wrapped into that picture of desirableness is not just physical fitness. There's more to it. Of course, you have to be somewhat attractive for anybody to pay attention to you out there in the sexual marketplace. But to assume that just hitting the gym is going to turn around this society-wide celibacy problem, it's just ignorance of the highest order. And the reason why they keep railing on this, guys like Sargon and Tim Pool and Jordan B. Peterson, the reasons why they keep going there is because they're not going to criticize women, the inherent behavior of women. Do you think they're ever going to criticize that? But the rub is, unless they do, unless these popular accounts stop worrying about the damn algorithm and start worrying about the real problem, nothing is ever going to change. That celibacy gap, let's call it, to use ridiculous feminist terminology, that celibacy gap is just going to keep growing wider, and more young women are going to look for older, more successful men. And they're going to look for the good-looking older men plus the financially successful older men. Now they might, like these Me Too actresses, they might look at Harvey Weinstein and lick their chops and see what they can get out of him, either through meeting him in a hotel room or Me Tooing him later, decades later, and getting money from him in a lawsuit. But, young men are not going to be financially successful until they're older. So unless we address this behavior on the part of women and curtail it somehow, I'm not telling you I know how to curtail it, we're not going to change this celibacy problem. It is going to run society into the ground. This Pareto principle driven behavior on the part of women is going to drive society into the ground. And this behavior isn't doing them any favors, because eventually they're all just going to turn into spurned cat ladies like we keep seeing. So it's not doing society any favors, and it's not doing these women any favors. So we have to address their instinctual Pareto principle driven behavior. Now, if you don't know what the Pareto principle is, I'll leave a link to a video, a stream I did about the NXIVM sex cult, in which I go into it in a lot of detail. I'm not going to get into it here because I want to keep this short. Okay, I think that's basically all I wanted to say. I think I managed to keep a video short here for once. These classical liberals, unless they start criticizing young women and telling them how to change their behavior, and instead keep focusing on what young men can do to change their behavior, like they're the problem, it's not these young women acting hypergamously, nothing's ever going to change. Now, I'm a small account. Nobody's going to pay attention to me, but I'm putting my 2 cents out there anyway. Let me know what you think, and thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next upload.
You know it's hard loving another man's girlfriend. Can't see her when you want to, got to see her when you can. We may be fighting or losing battle,